The roar that shook the underground chamber grew louder, a sound that seemed to claw its way up from the very bedrock. Dara, Sophia, and Vanak moved with a hushed caution, their footsteps echoing softly in the immense silence. They followed the sound down a deeper, narrower passage, drawn toward a faint red glow that pulsed in the darkness like a giant, sleeping heart. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of ancient dust and something else, a palpable anger. Vanak, the monk, leaned in, his voice a low whisper against the stone. One of the ancient guardians has awakened, but the rage inside him is strong. As they drew closer, the rhythmic glow intensified, bathing the passage in a crimson light. It revealed a towering figure, not standing, but emerging from the stone wall itself, as if born from the mountain's core. He was a warrior, clad in armor so old it was cracked and weathered, his eyes burning with a fire that spoke of centuries of sorrow and unyielding anger. His name, etched in the ancient script on the wall beside him, was Khmer Norin, once a legendary defender of the early Khmer tribes. But time had been unkind. Centuries of solitude and abandonment had twisted his noble spirit into something bitter and vengeful. When he spoke, his voice was not merely sound. It was a physical force, echoing like thunder rolling through a sealed cave. Who dares disturb the slumber of the forgotten? Dara, despite the fear that tightened his chest like a vice, stepped forward. He held his spear low, a gesture of respect, not aggression. My name is Dara. We come in peace. The land is threatened again, and we need your guidance. Khmer Norin's burning eyes flashed with contempt. Guidance. The word was a snarl. The world forgot us. It left us to crumble into dust. Kings carved their glorious names in stone, while ours were erased by the wind and rain. Why should I fight for a land that has already erased me? The pain in his voice was a tangible thing, a wave of grief that washed over them, so powerful it made the very stones of the chamber seem to weep. Sophia felt it resonate deep within her soul, a sorrow that spanned generations. She raised a hand, her movements slow and gentle, a stark contrast to the warrior's coiled fury. You were never erased, she said, her voice soft but clear, cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. Your courage lives on. It lives in every river that flows, every forest that stands tall. The people simply lost the stories. But we are here to restore them. For a fleeting moment, something shifted in the ancient warrior's gaze. The inferno of his rage flickered, a hint of the noble hero he once was. But the weight of centuries of suffering was a mountain too heavy to move, with just a few words. With a deafening roar of pure anguish, he charged. The attack was impossibly fast for a creature of stone and sorrow. Dara barely had time to lift his spear to block as the ancient hero brought his massive, stone-shattering fist down. The impact was cataclysmic. Dara was thrown across the chamber floor like a broken doll, his spear clattering against the stone. He gasped for air, the force of the blow having knocked the wind from his lungs. Sophia rushed to his side immediately, her hands glowing with a soft, protective light as she began to chant an old spell of shielding, her words a desperate prayer against the warrior's might. Khmer Norin advanced, his every step making the ground tremble beneath them. He was a force of nature, an earthquake of grief and power. Vanak, seeing the raw, untamed sorrow driving the Guardian, shouted over the din, his voice filled with urgency. He is bound by sorrow. It blinds him. You must remind him of who he once was, not what he has become. Dara struggled to his feet, his body aching from the impact. He looked at the charging giant, then at the walls around them. An idea, a desperate gamble, sparked in his mind. Gathering all his strength, he gripped his spear, not to attack, but to make a statement. He slammed the butt of the spear hard against the chamber floor. A sharp, resonant crack echoed through the cavern, a sound that was more than just an echo. The sound triggered something ancient within the walls. Faint symbols, previously invisible, began to glow, tracing lines of golden light across the stone. Khmer Norin froze mid-stride, his head snapping towards the newly illuminated carvings. The symbols weren't just patterns, they were stories. The golden light intensified, revealing intricate images that danced across the walls. They showed the old warrior, Khmer Norin, standing proudly among the early clans. One image showed him defending a village from a monstrous beast, his shield held high. Another depicted him standing over sleeping children, a gentle guardian. A third showed him shielding the weak and the elderly during a great flood. These were not memories of a forgotten relic. They were the actions of a hero, a protector. As he stared, his own memories, buried under layers of bitterness and pain, began to awaken. His furious eyes softened, the burning red embers of rage giving way to a flicker of pained recognition. I remember. The words cracked through his stone-like chest, the sound of a heart breaking free from its prison of grief. The hostile red glow that surrounded him faded, replaced by a warm, golden aura that pulsed with regret and renewed purpose. The great warrior, the forgotten guardian, slowly, heavily, knelt before Dara. Young warrior, forgive my anger. I was lost in darkness for so long. His voice, though still deep and resonant, had lost its thunderous rage. It now held a profound sadness and a newfound clarity. What threat rises in your time, that you would seek out the forgotten? Vanek stepped forward, his earlier fear now replaced by a grave concern. Great Guardian, you are not the only one to awaken. There are more forgotten heroes, more ancient spirits, rising from their slumber across the land. He paused, letting the weight of his next words settle. But not all of them will remember their purpose as you have. Some will rise in chaos, driven by the same rage and sorrow that nearly consumed you. And one among them, the most powerful of all, seeks to reshape the land not in protection, but in his own dark image. At this, Kavak Norin's face, which had softened with memory, now darkened with grim understanding. He knew of whom the monk spoke. Then we have no time to waste, the Guardian declared, his voice regaining its strength. But this time it was filled with resolve, not wrath. We must unite the living and the forgotten before the land drowns in the shadows of its own past. Dara nodded, a sense of awe and immense responsibility settling upon him. Sophia placed a calming hand on his shoulder, their small group of three now joined by a legend reborn. Their journey had just begun, but now it had a new, terrifyingly clear purpose. To find and restore the memories of other forgotten heroes before they turned against the very people they once swore to protect. They had to prevent these ancient, powerful spirits from unleashing chaos upon the living, and most importantly, they had to stop the rise of the one warrior, feared even by the legends themselves. The one known only as the Emperor of Shadows. Their quest was no longer just about saving their village. It was about saving the soul of the entire kingdom from its own forgotten history. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next chapter of this epic adventure. See you next time.